Carl Jung famously noted that the gods of antiquity have not disappeared but have transformed, emerging as diseases and neuroses in the modern world. Now, this perspective suggests that illness is not merely a physical failure or psychological imbalance, but a symbolic expression of unmet spiritual needs. It is a call to explore the uncharted depths of the unconscious, where the sacred resides. By interpreting illness as a metaphor, we open the door to a richer understanding of the human condition and the potential for transformation. Now, in this video, we will examine the spiritual dimensions of illness, focusing on the role of archetypes and metaphors in the process of healing. Through the lens of archetypal medicine and Jungian psychology, we will try to understand how the symbolic meaning of illness can provide not only relief but also a path towards greater integration and wholeness. The human experience is shaped not only by the conscious mind but also by the vast mysterious realm of the unconscious. This hidden domain, as Carl Jung and other depth psychologists have explored, is the reservoir of powerful forces that influence our thoughts, behaviors, and even our health. These forces were historically perceived as gods or spirits, entities that embodied the mysteries of existence and guided human life through their archetypal presence. In ancient cultures, these deities were revered, feared, and integrated into rituals and mythologies that provided a framework for understanding both individual and collective experiences. Now, in the modern era, where the divine has been largely dismissed or secularized, these archetypal forces are still there. They haven't disappeared or lost. Instead, they have retreated into the unconscious, often emerging in forms that demand attention through illness and suffering. So, illness in this sense acts as a royal road to the sacred, forcing individuals to confront aspects of their inner worlds that are otherwise ignored or suppressed. The physical and psychological disruptions of illness bring to light the spiritual dimensions of life that modern society frequently denies or overlooks. The experience of being ill often strips away the veneer of daily life, exposing vulnerabilities and depths that were previously hidden. This plunge into the unconscious can be both a frightening as well as a transformative journey. As Jung suggested, illness provides a portal through which one can encounter the sacred, reconnecting with the archetypal energies that shaped human existence. It compels individuals to engage with forces that are beyond their control, inviting dialogue with the inner world and its spiritual realities. The Carl Jung's contribution to understanding the relationship between illness and the unconscious is profound. He argued that the gods of antiquity, once externalized in myth and ritual, have not vanished but have transformed into psychological phenomena. The gods have become diseases, Jung wrote, emphasizing that when the sacred is ignored or repressed, it does not disappear but instead manifests in pathological ways. In this sense, modern afflictions such as depression, anxiety, and neurosis can be seen as the expression of archetypal energies that have been neglected or misunderstood. Jung viewed illness not merely as a disruption but an opportunity for integration and transformation. By recognizing the archetypal forces at play and engaging with them consciously, individuals can uncover the deeper meanings of their suffering. This process of uncovering and integrating the spiritual dimensions of illness fosters not only healing but also a greater sense of wholeness, as it bridges the divide between the conscious self and the unconscious archetypes that shaped human life. In this way, illness becomes not an end but a pathway to profound personal growth and connection to the sacred. Now, archetypal medicine is a framework that views illness not solely as a biological or psychological malfunction, but as a manifestation of deeper spiritual symbolic dynamics. Unlike the conventional biopsychosocial model, which emphasizes measurable physical, psychological, and social determinants of health, archetypal medicine incorporates the spiritual dimension as an essential element of healing. It recognizes that illness often serves as symbolic messages from the unconscious, reflecting unresolved conflicts, neglected aspects of the self, or disconnection from a larger spiritual context. By addressing the spiritual roots of diseases, archetypal medicine fosters healing that encompasses not just the body and mind, but the soul. Now, conventional medicine excels in addressing symptoms and managing diseases through pharmacological and therapeutic intervention. However, it often stops short of exploring the existential or spiritual meaning of illness. Archetypal medicine, on the other hand, approaches diseases as metaphors, rich with symbolic meaning that can guide individuals towards deeper self-awareness and transformation. While the biopsychosocial model might view depression as a chemical imbalance or a response to environmental stimuli, archetypal medicine might interpret it as a manifestation of the dark night of the soul, a period of spiritual crisis that demands engagement with neglected parts of the psyche. The roots of archetypal medicine can be traced back to ancient spiritual and shamanic traditions, where healing was inherently intertwined with the sacred. In these traditions, shamans and healers acted as mediators between the physical and spiritual realms, interpreting diseases as disruptions in the individual's relationship with the divine or the community. For example, the ancient Greek healing temples of Asclepius encouraged patients to incubate dreams that would reveal the spiritual sources of their afflictions. Similarly, indigenous shamanic practices involve rituals, chants, and ceremonies to address the spiritual dissonance underlying physical or mental suffering. Archetypal medicine seeks to revive these traditions in a contemporary context, adapting their insights to the modern world's needs. By engaging with the symbolic messages of illness, individuals can uncover the deeper meanings behind their suffering. This process often involves rituals, dream works, or therapeutic practices that help translate physical symptoms into spiritual insights. For example, an individual grappling with anxiety might explore how the archetype of the warrior is urging them to confront challenges they have avoided. Such interpretations transform the disease from a source of despair into a pathway for growth and integration. Now, viewing illness as a metaphor offers a profound lens through which we can understand the deeper symbolic meanings behind diseases. In this perspective, physical symptoms are not just biological phenomena, but expressions of unresolved psychological, emotional, or spiritual conflicts. Metaphoric thinking allows individuals to interpret their afflictions as messages from the unconscious, offering insights into areas of life that require attention and transformation. For example, chronic pain might metaphorically signify an emotional burden that an individual is carrying, while a respiratory illness could symbolize an inability to breathe freely in a restrictive environment. These metaphors provide a pathway to explore the connection between inner conflicts and their outward manifestations in the body. This view, however, has been met with criticism, most notably from Susan Sontag. In her seminal work, Illness as Metaphor, Sontag argued that interpreting illness metaphorically often leads to stigma and victim blaming. She contended that attaching symbolic meanings to diseases, especially those with unclear causes like cancer or AIDS, risk perpetuating harmful narratives that imply the patient is at fault. For Sontag, illness should be understood purely as a biological phenomenon, stripped of metaphoric interpretation. While her critique highlights the potential for misuse, it overlooks the empowering and transformative potential of metaphoric thinking when applied thoughtfully. Rather than assigning blame, metaphoric interpretations can help individuals find meaning in their suffering, offering a framework for understanding and addressing the deeper causes of their ailment. Now, healing through symbolism involves using rituals, myths, and metaphors to restore balance and integration within an individual. Symbols act as bridges between the conscious and unconscious, allowing individuals to access the deeper layers of their psyche. In many indigenous and religious traditions, healing practices are rooted in the symbolic. For example, in shamanic traditions, rituals involving chants, drumming, and vision quests are used to address the spiritual imbalances that manifest as illness. These rituals often involve symbolic actions such as retrieving lost parts of the soul, which help individuals reconcile with the archetypal forces at play. Religious traditions also emphasize the symbolic nature of healing. In Christian traditions, the act of confession and absolution can be seen as a symbolic ritual that alleviates guilt and restores spiritual harmony. Similarly, in Hinduism, the practice of puja, the ritual worship, involves offering symbolic items to deities, fostering a connection with the divine and promoting inner balance. Now, these practices demonstrate how engaging with symbolic representations of illness can catalyze psychological and spiritual healing. One compelling example is the use of dream work in archetypal medicine, inspired from ancient Greek healing temples dedicated to Asclepius. Patients would sleep in these temples, hoping to receive healing visions or dreams that would reveal the underlying causes of their illness. Now, these dreams, rich with metaphoric content, were interpreted as messages from the gods, guiding the individual towards spiritual and physical restoration. In modern contexts, metaphoric and symbolic approaches to healing are often integrated into psychotherapy, where patients are encouraged to explore the imagery and narrative associated with their symptoms. Ultimately, healing through symbolism requires a shift in perspective. It asks individuals to see their illness not as purely physical disruptions, but as opportunities for deeper self-exploration and growth. By embracing the metaphoric and symbolic dimensions of their afflictions, they can move beyond symptom management to achieve a sense of wholeness and spiritual alignment. This approach underscores the profound interconnectedness of body, mind, and spirit, demonstrating the power of metaphoric thinking in the healing process. The modern world is often characterized by an overwhelming emphasis on materialism and reductionist science, leading to what some have called a spiritual dark age. In this paradigm, the metaphysical dimensions of existence are dismissed or ignored, reducing human experience to a set of quantifiable variables. Illness is predominantly viewed through a biomedical lens, focusing on symptoms, chemical imbalances, and mechanical failures of the body. While this approach has achieved remarkable success in addressing acute medical conditions, it often fails to recognize the deeper spiritual layers of human suffering. This materialistic worldview has fostered a profound alienation from the sacred. In denying the presence of spiritual forces, Western culture in particular has severed its connection to the rich traditions that once interpreted illness as a meaningful part of a human journey. Archetypal energies, once revered as gods or spirits, are now dismissed as superstitions or relics of an unenlightened past. As a result, individuals are left without a framework for understanding the symbolic and transformative potential of their suffering. This creates a climate where spiritual needs remain unaddressed, leaving many to feel disconnected, hollow, and adrift. Even in the field of psychosomatic medicine, which acknowledges the interplay between mind and body, the spiritual dimension is often overlooked. Popular approaches that promote concepts like positive thinking or mind over matter tend to simplify the complex relationship between psyche and soma, offering superficial solutions that fail to engage with the unconscious roots of suffering. Such reductionist views not only trivialize the profound nature of illness, but can also lead to harmful narratives where individuals are blamed for their conditions due to perceived mental or emotional inadequacies. Too much responsibility is thrown at the ego. These attitudes further alienate individuals from the deeper exploration of their suffering, perpetuating the spiritual void in contemporary healthcare. One of the greatest obstacles to spiritual healing is the resistance individuals face in confronting the deeper roots of their suffering. Exploring the spiritual dimensions of illness often requires engaging with uncomfortable truths, such as an unresolved traumas, repressed emotions, or neglected aspects of the self. This process can evoke fear, denial, and defensiveness, as it challenges the ego's need for control and stability. Many prefer to view their ailments as purely physical or sometimes psychological, avoiding the vulnerability and surrender required to engage with their spiritual origins. True healing, however, demands a willingness to surrender to the unknown. This surrender involves letting go of rigid beliefs and opening oneself to the transformative power of archetypal forces. It requires individuals to embrace the discomfort of self-exploration and to recognize that healing is not merely about curing symptoms, but about undergoing a deeper transformation. Transformation is inherently disruptive, as it calls for dissolution of old identities and patterns. For many, this process feels threatening as it requires abandoning familiar ways of being and embracing the uncertainty of growth. However, without this step, true healing remains elusive. The symptoms of illness, when seen as messages from the unconscious, can guide individuals toward the changes that they need to make. Jungian psychology refers to this as the journey of individuation, where one moves beyond the ego's confines to integrate the unconscious and connect with the self, the archetypal center of wholeness. The practical approaches to spiritual healing often draw heavily from Jungian psychology, which emphasizes the importance of engaging with the unconscious and interpreting illness as a symbolic narrative. One of the key techniques in this framework is the personification of unconscious forces. Jung believed that the unconscious manifests through archetypes. By giving these archetypes a voice or identity, individuals can better understand and integrate the forces shaping their inner lives. This process often involves dream analysis, active imagination, and symbolic interpretations. In dream analysis, for example, recurring symbols or characters that emerge during illness can be explored as messengers from the unconscious. A patient suffering from chronic fatigue might dream of being weighed down by chains or trapped in a dark cave. These images could symbolize an unresolved emotional burden or a neglected part of the self that requires attention. By interpreting these symbols, patients can uncover the deeper issues underlying their physical symptoms and begin to address them consciously. Active imagination is another powerful Jungian technique where patients consciously engage with the images or voices that arise from their unconscious. This dialogue allows them to explore the symbolic meaning of their suffering, transforming symptoms into opportunities for growth. For instance, someone experiencing persistent migraines might visualize their pain as a fiery dragon and imagine conversing with it. This exercise can reveal the message behind the pain, perhaps unexpressed anger or a creative potential yearning for release. Transformation through spiritual healing is often depicted in myths, religious texts, and cultural rituals. One powerful example is the biblical story of Jacob wrestling with the angel. Jacob's struggle represents the human confrontation with divine or archetypal forces, a battle that leaves him wounded but also transformed. His injury becomes a symbol of growth, as he is renamed Israel, he who wrestles with God, signifying a new identity and purpose. Similarly, individuals grappling with illness may experience it as a confrontation with a force greater than themselves, emerging from the struggle with a deeper understanding of their lives and a renewed sense of self. Rites of initiation in indigenous cultures also offer a model for healing. These ceremonies often involve symbolic death and rebirth, reflecting the transformative potential for suffering. For example, an individual undergoing a shamanic initiation might endure trials that stripped away their old identity, only to emerge with a new role and connection to the spiritual world. These rituals underscore the idea that healing is not about returning to a previous state, but about evolving into a more integrated and authentic version of oneself. Thus, fostering a receptive mindset towards suffering is essential. Rather than perceiving illness as an adversary, one can view it as a teacher, offering guidance towards self-awareness and personal growth. By exploring the symbolic and archetypal aspects of their experience, individuals can uncover the deeper spiritual truths within their suffering. These perspectives not only promotes healing, but also empowers people to lead more meaningful and fulfilling life.